memo requesting he wear his dress uniform today. He picked up the paper without thinking and glanced at the image. A smile tugged at his lips, but he kept his face impassive. It was a cartoon depicting two men. The first was a tall, imposing figure standing proud in a dark suit, and beside him stood a much smaller, punier figure, naked except for a nappy and a pacifier in his mouth. It was cleverly done. The identities were clear, though in reality Harry Jr. was the image of his father. Beneath the image were the words, "We voted for this, and we got this." Out of the corner of his eye, he could see Secret Service agents running around collecting the bits of paper. Maybe he should help. He was, after all, Secret Service now. But the president was speaking again. Gideon let the words flow over him. He had seen the speech earlier that morning and had experienced the first flicker of optimism since he'd come home to D.C. Perhaps there was hope for the party. His attention drifted from Harry to the tall man standing behind him, slightly off to the left, and he felt a stirring of the old hatred low down in his gut. Boyd Winters, head of the Secret Service and Gideon's new boss, though he'd made it clear on his first day that Gideon was not his choice for second-in-command, and that he'd be watching him. That was 2 months ago, and Gideon hadn't seen or spoken to the man since. Maybe Boyd didn't trust him. Maybe he thought Gideon might be harboring a little unresolved resentment. It had been Boyd who had delivered the news of Gideon's father's suicide 10 years ago. He'd come in while Gideon was being interrogated about his brother's disappearance, giving a brief cessation of pain, to bring the good news personally. He'd hinted that perhaps Gideon might take the same way out and save them all a lot of bother. Gideon hadn't been feeling particularly inclined to cooperate. He still had things to do. All the same, Gideon was pretty sure that if it had been left to Boyd, he would never have gotten out of that basement alive. He was guessing that only Harry's intervention had saved him. As though sensing his attention, Boyd turned his head slightly so that he was staring directly at Gideon. His lips tightened, but apart from that, he showed no reaction. Gideon kept his own expression blank, let none of his hatred show. This was a new start for him. He wasn't about to mess it up. Just yet. Aaron Frome watched the president's speech from a table in the back of a bar off Fifth Avenue in New York. Over the years, Aaron had spent a lot of time studying President Harry Coffle Jr. He'd grown up in D.C., and their families had been close, and he could tell from his body language that the man was pissed. He grinned. Things had played out better than he could have imagined. A gust of wind at the right moment. It was scary how the little things beyond their control, made so much difference. Part of him knew that releasing the cartoon had been a childish dig, and for that reason he hadn't run the plan through the correct channels. The committee would have shot it down. But Aaron had also known that Harry would hate it, and he hadn't been able to resist. Harry started talking again. In order to make that dream come true, we all had to accept certain restrictions. Restrictions some claimed could never be justified. But we here today are proof that everything that was promised to the American people has come to pass. He paused to allow the crowd to cheer, then continued. And today I can announce that culmination of the dream. A return to the democratic process. The crowd went wild. Aaron snorted. A return to democracy? He would believe it when it happened. He certainly wasn't putting his plans aside until he saw some solid evidence. The camera panned out across the audience, and he searched the faces. Stella wasn't there. He picked up his glass and swallowed the bourbon in one go. Disappointment was a noose squeezing the breath from his lungs, stealing his air, leaving him lightheaded. He hadn't realized how much he'd needed just a glimpse of her. Then his gaze snagged on a figure sitting in the second row. Gideon, his perfect fucking brother, the hero of the goddamn wall, single-handedly saving the country from invasion or some such crap. 10 years had changed him. He didn't look so perfect anymore. Aaron had heard that he'd returned and was working for the administration again. How could he, after everything that had happened? The camera was back on Harry now. While he continued with his speech, he gave the impression of working on autopilot, his mind on other things. Good. Aaron was glad he'd given him something to think about. The bar door opened, and Aaron twisted in his seat and watched as a man entered. He paused, spotted Aaron, and headed over. A message has come through. The man reached into his pocket and pulled out a scrap of paper. Paper was back in fashion. With the internet and cell phones all monitored, paper was the one method of communication.